Always fun having my next guest on the Sports Card Shop guest line. He's back once again, Ray from Philly. We're going to be talking about the Baseball Card Hall of Fame. It's that time of year again. The candidates are set, 40 to be exact. 10 will make it, 30 will be on the outside looking in. Ray, welcome as always.
Hey, John, thanks for having me on again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and this time it's nice because we get to do this sooner. It seems like whenever we do this, it's always and it's my fault. It's not your fault, but it's always me trying to like scramble and get the episode in just under the bell. So this time we're gonna get it in early. We even moved this interview, but as far as when the deadline date for voting is, this will air in plenty of time comparatively to times we've done this
Hmm.
before. I know what the Baseball Card Hall of Fame is, but for those that have never heard of it, or maybe even new to the hobby, I'll this is your baby. I'll let you kind of give the history and where we are today with it.
Well, yeah, thanks, John. I appreciate that. Well, the Baseball Card Hall of Fame was something that I came up with in 2018. So this is the seventh year that I've been doing this. And back then in 18, I always wondered, to me, of two things I've always been near and dear to my heart have been baseball cards and the actual Baseball Hall of Fame. So in early 2018, I always wondered why the Hall of Fame never actually did inductions for cards, because cards and baseball are synonymous with each other. Uh, I always felt that it would be great that they would have a showcase display, which they do now. I think it's called Shoebox Treasures or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
it
yeah,
they do. I've been there. See, I'm close to the baseball hall. I usually get there in the bare minimum a couple of
right.
times a year. Right? And it's funny. I think that exhibit went on display very soon after your first. So maybe they stole a little bit of your thunder. But I don't know if you haven't been there yet. It's
Yeah.
really cool. I think they're starting to like change things out too as well. So it's different when
Hmm.
you go if you haven't been there in a bit. But yeah, go ahead. Some of those cards that are in your baseball card Hall of Fame are in that exhibit too as well. So, but go ahead. I just kind of wanted to jump
Oh
into it.
yeah, that was and I'm hoping, maybe I'm glad if I had something to do with that, and maybe it is an influence or something to that nature. But I'm glad they started doing something like that. So in February, I think of 2018, I came up with the idea of, like, having people vote for an actual virtual baseball card Hall of Fame. It was a way to get a discussion out to talk about the history of the cards. It was a way to get even younger people to learn about the cards and the history of certain cards that are iconic and valuable and rare, and the beauty of it. It's like artwork. So I wanted to have 10 cards get voted in each year, and have the people out there in YouTube, out in the public, vote for certain cards that just needed to be acknowledged, and preserving the history of this hobby and the history of the game. So I'm glad I was able to. It's grown, leaps and bounds over the past several years. People, it starts for a very friendly bar room type of discussion, which is always a good thing to say. Nah, I think this card deserves more than this other card to get in, and how about looking at not just rookie cards, looking at certain cards that are iconic for other reasons. So it gets a really good discussion and education, I hope, too, with younger people, to look at cards from way back in the 1800s and early 1900s.
Yeah, and it's great. And I'm a history guy. I'm a history guy, Ray, like in general, like
Me
world
too.
history. And so obviously, we have the cards of modern day, but we wouldn't be where we are today with without whatever happened prior.
Right.
And so I'm sort of I kind of honor that. I like what you said there because someone may not be into vintage cards themselves, but we can't just because of that we can't just ignore past history because you won't even the people who collect modern ultra modern you wouldn't have those cards without the predecessors. So whether
Right.
you like it or not, speaking for them, that's an important part of hobby history, baseball history in this case. And I like how you tied that together because they are. You mentioned the word synonymous. They are synonymous.
Hmm.
Whether you collect vintage or not, that is synonymous. The past. I think in baseball, of all the sports, even more so in baseball, we look at records and the Hall of Fame. Baseball is kind of the first Hall of Fame you
Hmm.
think of. You think of all the sports.
Right.
So it makes sense. And one thing I will say, it's it's crazy when I think about it. It's been 7 years or 6, 7 years already.
Hmm.
Where's the time? Where's the time
I
going?
know.
I think. And the other thing, this cost me a little bit of money because every year when I see who the 10 that got in, I
You want
say,
to
well,
buy
how many of those do I have? And, sometimes it's two, three, four. And then I'll say, man, I don't have that. I really think I should. And then I wind up having to put that on my want list, if you will. So, but
Yeah,
that's the fun,
absolutely.
right? That's the
Right.
fun. And while money can be a factor it's not the first criteria, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
how iconic the card is, and what it means to the hobby. Sure, the value is going to factor in there, but it's not at the top of the list. And so
Right.
sometimes you see some of the cards that get in, and you don't necessarily have to break the bank to
Right.
get one if
Right.
you so choose. So
Right.
that I appreciate that as well. You have football Hall of Fame. We're obviously here
Hmm.
to talk about the baseball one. I think like the big question, right? Eventually, how about a basketball or a hockey? I know we've talked about
Hmm.
that in the past. Any progress there? Is it
I'm
is it
looking. I'm looking, hopefully, to expand and maybe bring in a basketball card Hall of Fame as well, because like I started collecting in 1979, and at first, when you first start collecting, you're only knowing about the current cards that is out at that time. So I didn't know anything about older cards from before 1979. All I had to go by were magazines or Sport Americana used to have a once a year annual, and that's how I learned about cards. But that's why I created something like this, especially towards that younger generation too. Here's there's older cards here to look at that you might want to learn about and educate yourself on. And the basketball card is a basketball card. Vintage cards especially are really awesome cards. And right now, especially in the modern world, basketball cards have just gone through the roof. They've gone crazy. Um, it's just an extremely popular sport, and yeah, that's hoping someday I will be able to add a third Hall of Fame with basketball cards, and then eventually hockey.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And I know you want to do it right. I mean, you could rush into it and just, you know what I mean, but
Hmm.
you want to do it the right way. I know football is that hall is fun to vote on every year. Those would be my first two
Hmm.
in terms of ranking as well, baseball and football in terms of what I collect on the PC side of things. So
Right.
like you said, you eventually you may get there with those, but for baseball and football, you and your committee are
Hmm.
doing a great job with it. A change this year that you just told me about before
Hmm.
we started recording is you're allowing more time for when the 40 candidates are posted. You're
Hmm.
allowing more time for people to vote than
Right.
in prior years, which I
Right.
applaud. I think that's a smart move. That
Hmm.
way, the word can spread. The people don't necessarily have to see crammed or rushed, and
Hmm.
and can get that word out there to get that
Yeah.
vote tally up further. Kind of the thought process. I'm sure you agree, but I'll let you. That was your call, so I'll let you
Yeah.
kind of speak on that.
It was past couple years. It was about 3 weeks time frame, 2.5 weeks, and it always seemed like when it was being run, it was always around maybe the national or some other events were going on. There's always card shows now. This weekend, for example, in Strongsville, Ohio, and there's one in New York, and people are busy, and I understand that. And I just was really wanted to give a chance, and so I made it just a full month and try and get the word out there and give people a chance to not feel like they're being rushed, and they can look at the list and peruse it and study about it, and they might select their cards and not submit and then change their mind the next day, and then they've submitted already, and they're, this way they have time, and I didn't want anyone to feel that they were being rushed. So getting the word out there and giving people a good ample opportunity to really look at the cards.
Yeah, no doubt. I think that'll make a difference. I think your probably your vote totals will be without knowing or doing the. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to venture a safe guess that you'll probably see higher vote totals for two reasons, if not
Yeah.
more. The extended time, and I think this is getting to be known more. More new people are coming in and
Mm-hmm.
saying, "Hey, I want to get my vote. I voted today, so my vote is in." As we go through this list here shortly,
Mm-hmm.
I might allude to what I voted or didn't vote for. It's always tough. It's like
It
anything,
is.
any kind of Hall of Fame, any kind of vote, right? You
Right.
always leave someone off. And you're like, oh man, I don't know how I can only vote 10. So there's 30 that
Right.
you can't hit the check mark next to. And then you
Right.
go back and sort of second guess yourself
And I
and
tell
whatnot.
people that too. I say, a lot of people will be checking off as they're looking at the card. I say, in my opinion, don't check off anything yet. Look at every card first, because I've seen people check 8 cards, and they're not even up to the 20th card on the ballot yet. And I'm like, you got 20 cards left and you only have 2 spots open. Look through everything first, a couple times maybe, and then go back and make your selection. Because I did that looking at it myself, and I don't vote, but I was just looking at them like, oh yeah, I would do this and do that. And I'm like, man, I already have 10 and I'm only on like 23rd card. So look
Yeah,
through it
no doubt.
first.
And here's a thought. Here's something I just thought about in hearing you say that and piggybacking off even what I said. When let's look at the real baseball Hall of Fame for the players, right?
Right.
How they do it is anyone like 5 years after someone retires, everyone's on the ballot. That
Right.
doesn't mean everyone's a Hall of Famer. But
Right.
let's say I was a marginal major league player, I retire, my name will appear on the ballot. I might not get any votes. So I think I know this sounds great. It might be easier to vote for a baseball Hall of Fame because you can throw out a lot. I hate to say it like that, but you can.
Right.
There's a lot of people that eliminate themselves based on their career. Like they're not they're hey, nothing against the player. He's not a Hall of Famer. Just he
Right.
didn't have a Hall of
Right.
Fame
And
career.
that's the differential with this, is that
Yeah,
people are looking at the player and not so
yeah,
much the card. It's about the card. There's players that are already in the Hall of Fame, like Billy Ripken.
yeah,
He's not a Hall of Fame player. So, but the
yeah,
card, it's
yep,
about the card.
yeah.
Right.
And here's the other thing. Even the 40 candidates for this year, every one of them, you can make a case for every one of them. You can't do that for every player on a sports Hall of Fame. There's some,
Right.
like I just said, there's people you look at, you know, uh, that you say he's not a Hall of Fame. I'm not even close. So that makes that easier,
Right.
right? With the
Right.
card Hall of Fame, they're on that list not because they retired 5 years ago. They're on that list because they were brought up by the committee as possible candidates.
Right.
So that I think that's the difference. I think it almost makes this kind of voting tougher because, like I said, I just voted for my 10, and then I looked at the 30 that I didn't click.
And
I
you're
actually did change a couple things. I unchecked one, and so I didn't. My original 10, I made a few minor adjustments, but
right.
even when I looked at the 30 in the end before I hit that submit button, Ray,
Right.
even the 30 I didn't vote for, it's not a slight to them. I just
I
only had
know.
10 votes.
It's
That,
tough.
it wasn't me being a jerk to 30
It's
cards. It was
it's
just like,
tough.
like, yeah,
It's really tough. And I try and make that, and that's why when people were like, well, why did you pick these cards? Well, initially you have to get started somewhere. So, but after these 10 cards that'll get voted in this year, I always tell people in the comments, suggest, suggest, suggest. This is a community type of thing that I try and get people involved. And I write them down. And like, for example, one of the cards in the ballot was suggested by quite a few people, the Robin Yount rookie. I took that into consideration. It's on the ballot. I mean, the people are a voice in this too. This is a community thing. So initially, of course, you have to get started somewhere. So I had to create the first ballot, but then since then, after every year when 10 get bumped off, actually 15 get bumped off, and I tell people to give me suggestions, for what you want to see.
Yeah, and that that Robin Yount rookie is a great example of something I just talked about with when we think about the financial aspects of this too.
Right.
Robin Yount's a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer, right?
Right. First
That's his
ballot.
rookie card.
Yep.
It's a great card. It's not a
Yeah.
really expensive card. Like if you don't
No.
have a Robin Yount rookie yet, I do. But
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't, or anyone else that didn't and wants to add that, you don't have to break the bank for that
No.
card. That card may be one of the 10. We'll know on May 13th. But
Mm-hmm.
even if it doesn't, it's still a great card that
Right.
can be picked up for I don't want to say
Next
pennies
year.
on the dollar, but
Yeah.
comparative to some other cards, even on this list, or cards that are already in the baseball card hall, it's a relatively affordable
Mm-hmm.
card to be acquired, and it's a great card. Just because it's affordable doesn't mean it's bad. It's just
Right.
it is what it is, and
Right.
I like that. While it is an aspect, it's not the first thing. It's not because that would be easy, right? If you were just putting
Right.
cards in because of their value,
Right.
the 52 Mantle, the Honus Wagner T206 would be in, and they are in, but
Right.
there wouldn't be anything to discuss. It would just
Right.
be
Oh
just on
yeah.
what they're worth.
It's
And that's no
expected.
fun.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and that to me that takes the fun right out of
Right.
discussing the not just the financial aspect of the cards, but more so what the card meant to the hobby, what the card means to collectors, and that sort of thing. And so I
Right.
think your criteria is done in the right way. For kind of explain folks how the process works. So there's 40 candidates on the ballot. Obviously, the 10 highest vote getters will be this year's class.
Mm-hmm.
And I like this rule too. Like, what did you say? The bottom five, the last
Yeah.
five have
Yeah.
to come off the ballot for next year.
Right. The bottom 5 votes will get bumped off for next year's ballot. I haven't decided for how long, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, uh, probably more so like a 2-year span, only because instead of like the top 10 get voted in and that creates 10 new openings. Well, I wanted to keep it fresh by having a lot of new cards each year. So I suggested that, taking off the bottom 5. So now instead of 10 new cards, it's 15 new cards, which is a pretty nice, significant turnover each year, right? So with the 10 coming off that are the top 10 and the bottom 5 that will get bumped off, and they could make it back on. Actually, 2 cards did make it back on that were on the ballot a few years ago.
Yeah, and I like that because it allows you to bring a few fresher cards into the mix, and for those
Mm-hmm.
voting, right,
Right.
it takes away a little bit of the redundancy.
Right.
Not that there's anything; these are all great candidates. Even the 5 that will get bumped off, you can make an argument they should be in. They just
Right.
for whatever how it's the people voting, right? It's
Right.
the people voting, and so the masses speak. But there might be 5 candidates. There's some of those 5 that get bumped off will have other people have voted them in. They just
Right.
didn't get enough votes to not be in the bottom 5, and so that's
Right.
the beauty in it. But it also allows you to introduce 5 more cards than you would have if without that rule, and
Right.
it makes sense to me. I don't think anyone can argue that. And anyone that gets mad, like if someone gets mad and says, "Well, that was my card. Now it's not even on the ballot next
It
year."
could come back on.
It,
It could.
yeah, like you said, it can come back on. But hey, listen, the people spoke. Like it was
Right.
your card, your vote, but not enough other people
Right.
agreed with you. Unfortunately, at this point, like you said, it can come back on. Sentiments can change. A lot of it's to raise who's on the ballot. It's like
Right.
any hall, right?
Right.
There's guys that don't get in because of just other choices that people rank ahead of them, and they're not saying, "Hey, this card's terrible." They're just saying, "I like this card better," and
Right.
so that's a factor too. That's how it works in the real hall. Is some players don't get in just because of better quality players, and
Mm-hmm.
then when they're kind of those guys are already in, then it's
Right.
their turn to finally step through the doors and get into the hall. So
Right.
is that the only change? I know the extended voting time and that. Are there any other changes for people
Uh,
who have voted before?
no, that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple, cut and dry. Pick 10 cards, submit only one ballot. It's on an honor system, really, and that's it. And then make a suggestion, post a comment. And I've gotten quite a few suggestions already. Um, and that's it. And have fun with it and take it from there. No other major changes.
No, that's good. That's good, and we're going to get to that list here in a few minutes. Um, how enthusiastic does the meeting go when you're discussing candidates? Does it get? I don't want to say heated. I don't. I'm not in the room, but
Well,
does it get? Do people really get fired up about like, hey, this has to be in? In other words, to get to the 40, to kind of briefly kind of how does that all happen?
well, when people make suggestions on there, I'll take it into consideration definitely, and I'd like for them just not to just say this card should be in there without really any reason. Like, give me a kind of a reason what your thoughts are on that card. And to me, the stipulation was the popularity of the card, not the player, the popularity of the card, the iconicness of the card, how rare it is, and the value of the cards. Those four things to me stood out and alone. Initially, and it was really easy initially. I used this year is the first year where it's by myself on the committee. My two other committee guys, Victor and Mike, have moved on. Schedule conflicts wouldn't permit them to continue on. I wish them luck in the future and everything they do. They were a big help to me, and I really appreciate it. Um, but initially, the first 40 that the three of us discussed was really easy. Uh, nobody argued on anything. We all looked at each other and just agreed, like, yeah, uh, it was initially thought to be spread out over a lot of decades so that a younger generation can look at some of the more modern cards as well. That I would have to say that was kind of my only change this year as well, besides the length of time, was I didn't really pick too many modern cards this year. Um, Means that I really feel that the older ones uh, have to get into the hall first before anything, say from the 2000s or 2010s or anything like. Not that those cards aren't great, but I figure they're just too new and they have time to get in before cards that are 80, 90, and 100 years old. That like a player, have been waiting for a long time, so to get into the hall. So that really was another slight change that. I didn't pick too many, say, from the late 90s or early 2000s. There is some cards left over on the ballot from that time era, from the 90s and early 2000s, like the Cabrera, Ichiro Pujols rookie still on there. It didn't get bumped off. So, yeah, I mean, it was really kind of simple on the initial 40. It was very kind of easy, just, picking cards. And then from here on out, I asked for people to give suggestions and uh, not only give me a suggestion, but kind of give me just a 1 or 2 sentence short, synopsis of why you think that card should be in. And it's so far, I'm getting a lot of responses of people making a suggestion. I think you should take a look at this one. This one's for such and such. Cool. And I jot it down and I listen to what they're saying. So it's been really cool.
Yeah, and I agree with you with some of the vintage era and pre-war, right? Those things should, in a sense, get kind of I don't know if you want to say preferential treatment, but going to the first
Yeah.
class, white glove treatment because, like you said, the modern cards, the 2000s and up, they're gonna have plenty of time, right? And in some of
Right.
those cases, those players are actually still playing, so
Yeah.
they're adding to the legacy of the player themselves as well. So I don't think anyone can argue that too much. either, Ray. I think it
And
makes
that's how it
sense.
started in the beginning. In the beginning, there wasn't a ballot. My first year doing this in 2018, I let people vote for whatever they wanted to vote for, and I was getting 300 different cards, and to try and keep track of that was crazy. So I wanted to, thin it down, streamline it to create a ballot based on my opinion. And like I said, when I had two other committee members, all of our opinions based on the iconicness, the rarity, the popularity, the value of the card. And this way, it's like the Veterans Committee in the Baseball Hall of Fame. They present it, a certain amount of players, the committee, and they look at who they want to vote for. You got to start with a ballot instead of letting people just running ramp shot, and I would have hundreds of different cards, and to keep a track of that alone was impossible. It was crazy.
Yeah, and then I think even too with the honesty policy too, you could get somebody to just stuff the ballot box with potentially a card that really maybe
Right.
doesn't have business being in over another one, and so now you've sort of made it you know harder for that, let's say, to happen. I won't say anything's not possible, but at least there's some standards and rules and procedures, so that becomes a
Oh
little
yeah,
bit more
I would have.
difficult.
I had one person 1 year vote for an 82 Donruss Rick Camp, and I knew that was just a joke. And I was like, that's when I said, okay, there's got to be, you know, a ballot, and then pick
Yeah,
from this ballot. Like that's got to be a joke, right? 82 Rick
yeah,
Camp.
that's the one Rick Camp super collector right there saying, "I'm getting my guy in. What through hell or high water, Ray? Here it goes." So no, but no, yeah, and I get it's hey, enthusiasm about the hobby is welcomed, at least from me, and but at the same time it's like the real hall, right? When someone
Right.
gets in, I'll use kind of the poster boy for Harold Baines is definitely a hot button topic when it comes to the Hall of Fame, like. Like how did that guy really get in? He didn't even play in the field very
Right.
much as a DH, and so you sort of eliminating the card version of Harold Baines, if you will. No offense to Harold Baines, I'm sure he's a very nice guy, but is he a Hall of Famer? I don't have a vote, but if I did, he wouldn't have been on my ballot. And like I said, that's nothing against the person. That's
And
just
that's what
yeah,
creates this whole nice,
yeah,
what I like to call barroom discussion.
yep, yep. All right, so we're gonna go through all 40 candidates here. I'm not gonna put pictures up. People will know many of these cards and will see them in their mind. If they don't, Google, eBay, you can find these cards and what they look like. We're gonna go through each one, Ray. By all means, if you want to comment on them, a little bit, first ballot, it's a returnee. If you know any numbers and you want to share it, you know what I mean.
Okay.
I'm going to more acquiesce to you because this is, about where these cards, if they're returning, how they did in
Right.
past years, how close they got or didn't get, and that sort of thing. We're going to go by year order, so we're going to go from oldest to newest. That way, there's no favoritism. Someone say, "Oh, you mentioned them first. You're trying to tell us something there, John." So we'll go just from oldest to most current. We'll start off with the oldest one, 1887 Old Judge Kid Nichols. This is an early days card. It's not the first card ever, but in that area, Old Judge, Tops has kind
Hmm.
of brought that line back at different times and whatnot. So even people who maybe don't collect vintage or pre-war will be familiar with Old Judge. Anything to add here with this card?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, last year, an old Judge card actually did get in, or I'm sorry, was on the ballot, and it was King Kelly. And a lot of people are very
And
familiar with cards early 1900s, but you don't see too many people, or even knowing that there's cards in the 1800s, such as Old
yeah,
Judge. So,
yeah, yeah. No doubt. Next one on the list here, like I said, we're going by year, so oldest to newest. Uh, the T206 Walter Johnson. T206. There's a few T206 on the ballot this year, starting with Walter Johnson. You say T206, that's probably one of the first vintage and pre-war sets people think about.
Right.
Even people who aren't into that era of the hobby are, they know what T206 is. That I think
Right.
that's the iconicism of that set to begin with, and so Walter Johnson, the portrait version, is on the ballot. I'll pause after each card. If you want to chime in, jump in. If not, we'll move on to the next one.
Sure.
So, all right. Next one, 1909, Philadelphia Caramel E95, another Honus Wagner card, right? Other than
Hmm.
the T206 on the ballot here. Another great card for those that aren't familiar with it. It's a batting pose. Him looking like he's looking at a pitch coming in. One of the all-time great hitters
Yeah.
in the sport, and it's a really cool card. I don't own any of these so far,
Hmm.
but and seeing that card, I'm like, man, I'd love to own that card.
And that's the second year now this card's been on the ballot. I thought last year, everybody knows about the T206 Wagner, but I wanted to see if there's any other slightly more affordable Wagners,
Yeah.
too, as well. And this was the next one in line. So second year on the ballot.
Yeah, and sometimes I think when we talk about Honest Wagner, everyone knows the story about the T206 car where he didn't want to be depicted on it because of the tobacco affiliation. Some got out and made the because there's so little of them, it added to the rarity and iconicism of the card. But people forget Honest
Hmm.
Wagner's one of the greatest
Greatest player.
players in the game. Forget the story about the card. Like that card they could they could have not pulled the card and it still would have been iconic. That just added to it. And I think sometimes Wagner doesn't get a fair people forget about that in the hobby. They think it's just the story. This guy is one of the greatest to ever put on cleats. So
Yep.
I wanted to throw that in there. Keep going here. 1909, Ramley, another Walter Johnson here, portrait. And it's funny if you see Walter Johnson portrait cards, he always has like the same expression on his face. It almost looks like the same photo, which Topps does nowadays for a lot of players. But back then, it was a different time period. But again, another iconic card. Got that design around the oval picture there.
This card's
So
been on the ballot quite a few years now, and it's gotten close. It hasn't
yeah,
cracked the top 10, but it hasn't gotten the bottom five neither. And his card's hanging around.
you think? I mean, just gut feeling. Would it? You think this might be the year a card like
Uh,
that? Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. I'm not a big fan of this particular card, but again,
yeah,
you don't have to be a fan of the card to acknowledge the rarity of it and the popularity, iconicness, value
yeah,
of a player in a card. So it's hanging around. It gets closer each year. So we'll see
yeah.
if this is his year.
I'm going to put the next two on my page together. They're both T206s. We got Cy Young and Tris Speaker. Uh, Cy Young, if you don't know who Cy Young is, you're probably not a baseball fan because the best pitcher for each league gets the Cy Young award. And Tris Speaker, again, and one of those players that I don't think a lot of people are aware how great of a player
Right.
he was. Again, this is the T206 iconic set, and they've become the third so far, the third T206 on this year's ballot. I don't know if you want to add, and we can add
What?
another one. I see the next one
Yeah,
is
that's the
is
next one's the
is
big one.
is Sherry McGee the error.
Right.
So, um,
Yeah.
so yeah, go ahead.
Big card, the Sherry, and this is the Sherry Maggie, even though his name is McGee, but we call this one the Sherry Maggie error card. This is the first real error card. Not a Hall of Fame player, but this card is when I was a kid back in the day, this was a Mount Rushmore. I mean, you had the Honus Wagner, the 52 Tops Mantle, the Eddie Plank, and this was up there with and also Napoleon Lajoie's 33 Gaudy. This was a Mount Rushmore type of card 30, 40 years ago when I first started collecting. And this is the first year on its ballot. People made suggestions to me on this. I'm like, I can't believe I never put this on the ballot. This is a huge card.
So this is one where you're saying kind of my bad, like it
Yeah.
slipped through the crack.
Slipped through the cracks, a big error card of the misspelling. And I have the
Yeah,
corrected card, and that's very affordable, but this error card, forget it. It's
yeah,
a comma card for sure.
yeah. It'd be interesting. Like you said, probably should have been on prior, but
Yeah.
here it is making its debut. It'll be interesting to see what people think about it. Probably a lot of people maybe don't realize the significance. So that final vote total will be interesting to see where it comes in at as well. Next one on the list, 1914, Cracker Jack, Christy Mathewson, another iconic pitcher from along with Walter Johnson. I love the Cracker Jack. That's one of my favorite brands from that day. Because I mean, Cracker Jack is synonymous kind of with baseball, right? It's
Yeah.
in the song, "Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack," and here you got the sport that's it's so aligned with and the brand, and
Hmm.
they're just a colorful card, and
Yeah.
it's I have a few. I don't have this one, but I do have a few, and anytime you can get one I always look at them and try to pick some up when possible. And this, it's an inaction shot, right? And he's
Yeah. Yeah.
just releasing the ball. It's a
And
classic card.
it's a side by side view type of car. It's not the traditional top
Yeah,
and bottom. And it's also, this is its first year on the ballot, and it's one of Christy Mathewson's most valuable cards. He has one in there already, the T205 goal border.
yeah.
But I wanted to give this card some love because everyone knows the T205 and the T206, but this is actually more rare and more valuable than the other ones for Christy Mathewson.
Yep, and again, we'll see how it fares. Moving on to the next one, 1925 exhibit Lou Gehrig. Exhibit cards. I own quite a bit of them, um, and I'll self confess when I first got into the hobby and started going. Like you, it was 1979 when I got a little bit older. I was 7 at that time, but when I got a little bit older and started going back and buying cards and acquiring cards from before, non-current. I didn't like exhibit cards when I saw them. A lot of them were blank back. They almost looked like they were just cut out of cardboard. And over the years, they've grown on me.
Hmm.
I have some in my PC. I have some in my dealer inventory that I set up at shows with. So I've kind of done a 180, Ray, on
Hmm.
how I feel, but I don't love them. But at one point, I went from I don't really like these to like not accepting them to like now accepting them and having more of a fondness than ever before. So here we
Hmm.
have the Lou Gehrig uh, uh, version of this from 1925 on the ballot. I don't know if you want to add anything
It's
to
a
that.
lot of people consider this to be his rookie card.
Yeah,
He has the 33 Gaudy in the Hall of Fame already, but I did some research and looked to see, well, what is considered his rookie card, and a
yeah.
lot of people say this is the one.
Do you think? I'll ask you. You can't speak for everyone. You think that being an exhibit hurts its chances, or not necessarily?
If I can't speak for other people, for me, I'm a lot of people are telling me they're not huge exhibit fans. Um, the only thing I think reason why this is getting votes is this is considered his rookie card.
Yeah,
So it's this is the second year I think now that it's on the ballot. So yeah, I kind of do think like you said, there's no back. It's plain. It's like a postcard. And I think maybe people are having a little bit of a problem with this card, but the reason why it's hanging around is because, well, this is his rookie card. So, and it's the iconic Lou Gehrig. So I do think, eventually down the line it's going to get in, but if it was a more traditional base card at that time, but in that time frame in the mid 20s, there really wasn't Gaudies or play balls or DeLongs. It was mostly postcards like this or confectionery, candy cards or cigarette. So we'll see what it does. I'm curious to see when it should get in the Hall of Fame, how long it will take.
Yeah, I'm gonna just for sake of time, I'm gonna probably start. I'll do like three at a time, Ray, and then you can
Sure.
whatever ones you want to like add to it. I'll keep my comments brief as well. We got some 1933 Gaudies again, another iconic brand of cards. Jimmy Fox, Dizzy D. And then we got 1934 Gaudi, Hank Greenberg. Um, it's funny seeing the Gaudy Jimmy Fox. I'll just that is on my list of one of the cards I'd like to get at the National coming
Hmm.
up here in Cleveland. It's
Great card.
Jimmy Fox, a legendary home run hitter. This card is probably should be worth probably should bring more than it
Yeah.
typically does. It's
Yeah.
actually a fairly affordable card for an iconic player and an iconic brand. But so
Hmm.
maybe I'll own this card sometime in July. I'm kind of waiting. It's on. I always go into the National with like a 3 to 5 card list of cards I'd like to bring home.
Hmm.
I don't always get all of them. That's the fun of it. But this is on that short list. Anything with these three: Fox, Dean, and
No,
Greenberg.
Dean and Greenberg are returnees. They've been on the ballot now. This is the first year for Fox, and Fox has never been on the ballot before. So, and he does have a rookie card from the 20s, but this is the one card that a lot of people gravitate to
Yeah.
is his 33 Gallon.
Yep. Next three, like I said, we'll start putting these in kind of threes. Um, we got the 1941 play ball Ted Williams, the 1949 Bowman Satchel Paige, and the 1949 Bowman Roy Campanella. The thing that stands out, and
Hmm.
I'll give you a hint, I voted for it. Was the I'm not going to say everything I voted for, but just I will in this case. The play ball Williams. I kind of would when I saw that on this list, and not the only card I thought that with. When I saw it on this list, I kind of thought that isn't in already. That
Right.
kind of
See,
surprised me.
and this is the first year this card's on the ballot.
Yeah, so I will say this: I'm not politicking. Like I said, you got one of my 10 votes. I'd be shocked if this didn't get in. I think it's a highly regarded card. It's a great card, a close face up face. I have a thing for like close face up in cards, and so this card checks that box as well
Hmm.
for me. We'll go to the next three. 1949 Leaf Warren Spahn, 1950 Teleteros Josh Gibson, and 1952 Topps Andy Pafko. Uh, no, that's the number one card in the 52 set. I
Right.
actually own a very low grade copy
Hmm.
of that card, but
Me too.
it's a Brooklyn Dodger. I'm from Brooklyn, and very hard to find in great condition because as we know, with the people rubber banding the cards, that thing took the rubber band right across the middle.
Exactly.
It's an iconic card. I voted for it. That one. If I'm guilty of voting for a card that maybe probably shouldn't have got one of my 10 votes, I'm going to say it was the Pafco. I voted for the Gibson as well. So now people know three of them. I'm not. They won't know all 10, but I've given away three. That Gibson is he's probably the best player never to play Major League
Right.
Baseball, and that's not his fault.
Right.
And this card is very hard to find and iconic in its own right. I know it's not a U.S. brand, but I don't think that's not a criteria that you have to be a U.S. brand. And this card is on a lot of people's hit list or
Hmm.
want to own someday list. So I voted for the Gibson is definitely worthy. The Pafco that was a sentimental pick by me. Anything you want to throw in with
No,
these
you've
two.
hit it. You hit it right on the nail. Pretty
Yeah,
self-explanatory. Pafka #1, Tolateros, Gibson. That's the closest to a playing days card you could find to him.
yeah,
And Spawn's never been on the ballot before, and that's his rookie.
yeah, no doubt. And Warren Spahn, one of the best pitchers to do it. Going to the next three. Start off with it again. All these cards are iconic, but the 53 Bowman color, Mickey Mantle, the 54 Wilson Franks, Ted Williams, 57 tops Brooks Robinson. Again, for those that like me who love close face-ups of the player, uh, especially in rookie cards. Brooks Robinson, 57 tops, checks that box. Anything on these you wanna?
Now, again, three great cards. Mickey Mantle's he's already has four in there. The Wilson Franks, Ted Williams, last year was just on the outside of the top 10 looking in. And Brooks Robinson, rookie card of one of the great third basemen. He's done very well on this
Yeah,
ballot too.
yeah. Maybe this is the year that card gets in. Ray, I know he recently passed away.
Yeah,
Not that that's a reason. Like that card isn't any more iconic because he passed away. But you know how people, you know how
that's
minds work.
yeah, it goes hand in hand sometimes.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we hear about a legendary player passing away, we kind of look back and maybe that's the sort of igniter to get this card in
Right.
on this year's ballot. Next three, 58 tops Roger Maris, 59 Menko Sadaharu O, and 65 tops Carlton. The O, he's the Babe Ruth of Japan, but he's also known here in the States. Roger Maris is Roger Maris. Carlton, again, when we talk about very affordable rookie card of a great lefty pitcher. I wanted to kind of ask you about the O. Has this been on the ballot before? I don't remember
Mm-mm.
seeing it, so that's why
No,
I'm asking.
no. What got me thinking about adding this is when I added the Tolateros Josh Gibson. I looked
Yeah,
for another foreign card of a foreign player, and he's probably the most famous foreign player of all time in the history of the game. All-time home
yeah,
run king,
yeah.
and this is his rookie card. And it really got me thinking. Like, yeah, I think Sadaharu deserves to be on this ballot as well. He's a great player, and
Yep.
Carlton's never been on the ballot. This is his first year, and this is Sadaharu's first year.
Yeah, if Sadar Haro doesn't get in, it may not be because it's not worthy. It may be just because maybe some people don't realize
Right.
his significance, even to the American game, and
Hmm.
so well, it'll be interesting to see how where that card falls in the voting when all the smoke clears and the dust settles. Next three cards, Ray. We got 1967 tops Tom Seaver, 68 tops Tom Seaver, and the famous 68 tops 3D Roberto Clemente. I will give away another vote of mine, being a Mets guy. I did not, but I will tell you this: I didn't vote for the 68 Seaver. I voted for the Seaver rookie. Hint, hint. That's another card on my list to pick up at the National. It was on my list last year, and it just could not.
Mine
I
too.
could not get one. Yep, I could not get one. They were, I get it. It's the National. People got bills, but man, people were some of the asking prices last year were a little bit more than
Yeah.
I thought. I don't want to make this about comps, but they're a
Right.
little bit over comps, as the kids say.
They have been.
Um, yeah, and so I'm hoping this year maybe it's the year I get to bring one home finally. It's one of those cards I should have had already,
Hmm.
being a Mets guy. Um, but I just kind of kicked the can. I always kind of thought, I'll get it whenever, and I waited too long, right? And then he recently passed away in the last couple of years, and so what typically happens when someone passes away, their cards usually get a bump in price. If
Hmm.
usually initially, and then it sometimes will even stay at those levels. Seaver is one of those cards at the moment. Although with things sort of settling down, maybe I get to bring one home this year. Because so there's 4 cards I kind of let the cat out of the bag. But anything to add on these 3? The Clemente is just
The Clemente, yeah. That's a
yeah,
big card because it's probably his most valuable. And people are like, what? Over the rookie? Well, it's a rare card and it's 3D. So it's prone to cracking and condition.
yep,
So it's a very, very expensive card. And it's I think this is his third or fourth year on the ballot, but it's getting close.
yep. Maybe this is the year.
Maybe, yeah.
All right, let's go to the next 3. 1975 Tops Ramen. Kind of talked about that a little bit in the front part of the show. 1980. I'm glad to see this card, Ray. The 1980 Charlotte O's, the orange version of the Cal Ripken. This is a minor league issued
Hmm.
card, but it's a baseball card, right? Someone say, "Well, you're putting my." This is the classic card, and if you're a Cal Ripken collector or super collector, this is probably the grail card for all of those folks. This
Hmm.
is very hard to find, not necessarily affordable, and there is a blue version, if I'm not mistaken, and this is the tougher of the 2. And then
Hmm.
the third one is the '83 O-Pee-Chee Tony Gwynn. Anything to add here?
Yeah.
And
You hit it right
you
on the
know,
nose.
yeah, okay. All right. So next 3, this is a set I used to own, and I think I love the set. I don't have it anymore. I toy with always like getting another one, but haven't done it. '84 Fleer update. We have the Clemens, the '86 Tops traded Tiffany Barry Bonds, and the '87 Donruss Greg Maddux rated rookie. All iconic cards in their own right. Now we're getting more into the modern
Right.
day. So we'll see. They're going up against some formidable vintage and pre-war. So I don't know. I don't know how that's going to be. They might be on the outside looking in, but you never know. This was an era too. 86, 87, Ray.
Hmm.
I'm preaching to the choir here. Was when a lot of people really got into the hobby. So these may hit sentimental nerves and
Right.
sentimental feelings, and these might get more votes than you realize or
I
think
think
they
so.
should.
Yep. I
So
agree.
yep. So it'll be interesting to see. All right, next 3. 1990 Leaf Frank Thomas. That thing propelled the Leaf brand. People
Yeah.
were between that and the Griffey. The difference is that Griffey already had the '89 rookies releases. This was Frank Thomas's rookie card on a premium brand for that era. 1990 Leaf people were I had monster boxes of Leaf Commons from how much I opened up in search, and this was obviously the big chase card out of that set.
Hmm.
1990 Upper Deck Auto, Reggie Jackson, one of the early autograph cards to appear in packs, so that created a buzz on its own. And the 1991 Topps Desert Shield Chipper Jones rookie. Most people know Desert Shield cards designed for the troops serving in the Gulf War. Many made it back here as they brought them back, and they became a highly sought after collectible. People getting their favorite teams and players with that Desert Shield logo. Be careful. There are fake Desert Shield cards.
Yep.
That's how
Yep.
popular they are. So these 3 are iconic cards. Again, falling into that late '80s, early '90s era
Hmm.
where we'll see how people vote. Anything to add here?
No, the Jackson is actually a returnee card. This was a card that got bumped off on the bottom 5, and I put it back on because it was the first chase card, the first autograph chase card ever pulled out of packs.
Yeah, yeah, and that's to me that's in a way where I'm not saying what I voted for it or didn't, but that's an interesting dynamic. That
Hmm.
what I said, where we are today because of cards in the past. This is a perfect example of
Yep.
that. We all know what a chase card is, or the card everyone's trying to get. Well, this one was one of the first to introduce autographs out of packs when that
Hmm.
was sort of uncharted territory. Now it's no big deal. Now we just argue about on card autos versus sticker
Sticker,
autos, right?
right?
Yeah,
Yep. This
yeah. But back then,
you could say this started the autograph card craze. Was this card?
yeah. Yeah, so I got a feeling. I know you said you put it back on. This might get a little more love this year than it
I think
has
so.
prior. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to kind of see where it goes. All right, last three on the ballot. Not necessarily by voting, but obviously going in year order as I said I was going to do. The 1991 Upper Deck Michael Jordan SP1. Even to this day.
Hmm.
When I do shows, this card is very popular. People will sometimes ask for it or
Hmm.
ask if I have any. When Mike, in the batting cage in his White Sox gear, the 1992 Bowman Mariano Rivera rookie in pedestrian clothes outside the stadium, right? Just iconic for that shot. Arguably the greatest closer in the history of the game and an iconic card. And the Ichiro Pujols
Love this card.
tops. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this card. I do have a couple, and it's one of those cards I always try to get more of. It's
Hmm.
like even though I have it, I'm like I don't have a problem owning duplicates of the Chrome traded. And you got they're going to both be in the Hall of Fame here in the next
Yeah.
few, in the real, the baseball Hall of Fame here in the next few years. So, and
There's not too,
they're
yeah,
both
and
going to
it's
be first ballot
right.
as players.
There's not too
So,
many cards that have multiple players. There's only the Trammell Molitor that I know of, and
and
this is definitely
yeah,
going to be another one.
and no disrespect to Trammell or Molitor, both major league Hall of Famers, but Pujols and Ichiro are at least talent. I don't want to say, but name wise, they move the meter a little bit more than Trammell
Absolutely.
Molitor, and maybe that's not even fair to Trammell Molitor. I think that maybe goes testament to how underrated they are. That they're not probably looked at in maybe more higher regard than they are. But Ichiro and Pujols, and you look at what Ichiro did, and he had already played in Japan for many years before he
Yeah.
came over here.
7 years. Yeah.
Yeah, and he still put up Hall of Fame worthy numbers minus those 7 years. It's one of my
Yep.
favorite cards.
Yep. Mine
Um,
too.
and so you got this, the Rivera, and the what was the other one that I mentioned?
Jordan.
Yeah, the Jordan. I don't think the Jordan gets in, but that's just an iconic card, and still has desire. Still, here we are, 33 years later, Ray, and that card is still, it seems like I sell them as fast as I put them out, and again, a very affordable card. Unless you're looking for a PSA 10, then you're gonna have to get out your checkbook or your PayPal account, but generally actually, all three of these are fairly affordable when we look
Yeah,
at that.
especially in like a 9. A nine's a great
Yeah,
grade. It's a high
I,
grade.
I have no. I don't kick nines out of bed.
No,
So,
no, me neither.
uh,
Nines are fine.
yeah, because many of those nines you have would probably be tens if we play that game. Not that
Right.
I'm not saying I do, but um, yeah, it'll be interesting to see. That's the 40 rate. It'll be interesting to see some of the dynamic with some the newer cards, if you will, from the
Hmm.
the 80s and 90s and the Ichiro and Pujols to see how they go in there with some of those bigger boys
Hmm.
from the pre-war and vintage era. And because you're going to get again, the voting's open to everybody,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
it'll be interesting to see where these cards fare, how close they get. It might tell us a little. We can maybe learn a little something about the hobby in the process of
Exactly.
the voting for the card.
That's the whole premise. Yep.
Yeah. So anything? That's the 40. We're kind of at anything you want to add.
No, just get out and vote. Have fun with
Yep.
this. Tell your friends, tell your other hobbyists out there
Yep.
there's the 2024 7th annual Baseball Card Hall of Fame out now. Get out and vote for what 10 cards you feel deserve to be in this year's Hall of Fame. And, hopefully, it's going to expand to other sports, and hopefully this is going to expand to more virtualistic viewing, maybe a website or something like that, where I'm working on that people can go in and view it as a gallery of all the cars that are already
Yeah.
in there. So that's on the works too.
Yeah,
Keep fingers crossed.
that'll be very cool. It's kind of like, we go to the real Hall of Fames, right, to see the plaques, the
Right.
busts, that having that
Rather than just
website.
seeing a list,
Yeah, that, and you can go back and say, yeah, I voted for that, I didn't vote for that, and create even more conversation, even on past
right.
ballots and whatnot. So, Ray, give out the voting is till you got till May 13th,
May
that Monday.
13th, Monday, May
So
13th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then I'll come out with the induction video 2 days later on Wednesday, May 15th, around the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But yeah,
give
that's
out
it.
where do people go? How do people vote? Where do they go?
Yeah, they can go to two YouTube channels, the Sports Card Hall of Fame Network channel, the ballot's there, or they can go to Ray from Philly YouTube channel and the ballot's there as well. Either one. And just go there and watch the video and click on the link, and you'll see the link where you select 10 players, and you'll also see the spreadsheet of what cards have already gotten in. So
Yeah.
all the information is there. Two channels.
Awesome, man. Again, I say this every year. Kudos to you
Thank
for
you.
creating this. Kudos. Sometimes people create things and then they do them a couple years and then that's kind of the end and they peter out. This thing is on its 6th year, 7th year,
Seventh
going
year. Yep.
strong. Yeah, you're going to add to it as you mentioned, add in a website component and it's going to get bigger and better. I think it's safe to say you'll get more votes this year than in past, and as the thing continues to gain momentum. I love that. Once the voting's all been decided, maybe
Yeah.
you don't mind, we'll come back and we'll kind of talk
I would
about
love it.
the voting, who got in, who just missed, and who really missed badly, and
Yeah.
are going to be taking a seat for at least
I
a
would love
year or
that.
two.
Yeah. And
Let's do a follow up
yeah.
pod and once the voting is in. But go
Great.
vote, folks, now so we can have that show after the voting's all set up. Ray, as always, man, thanks for your time. Thanks for what you
Thank you,
do.
John.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.